Hi friends, and welcome to Crick Vidya's cricket podcast. And today we'll be reviewing the first test between India and Australia, and we'll also preview the second test, the Boxing Day test, starting at MCG on 26th. And to discuss this, I have with me Manju. Hi, Manju. Welcome to the
Hi.
podcast, and our special guest and now a regular guest, Bharat. Hey, Bharat.
Thanks, Vijay.
Welcome back. So, Bharat, I think the discussion has to start with the 36 all out, the new record. In short, your views on that. Should we read too much into it or treat it as a one off and move on?
When you get all out for say 36 or 50 or whatever, the best thing any can do is just to take it as one off and move on. Obviously, that's not something that might not help in a way because obviously you have got all out for 36, but that's the best thing any can do. Just look at it as a one off and move on. Think that you won't get worse than this. It's already the 36 all out. So you won't get worse than this. You won't be improved from here. Obviously, the batting, perhaps there was, maybe you can say there was few technical issues or whatever an expert might say, but I have to say that was some of the best seam bowling I've seen over say 20, 29 years of whatever cricket I've watched or listened. That's some of the best seam bowling I've seen. It is not like the Indian batsman only got out to say four shots. Those were excellent deliveries with a hint of swing and solid sea movement. Some on Twitter obviously didn't agree when I said that, but you could see it even afterwards. You can see with data that the delivery to Rane was around seemed 1.2 or 1.4 degrees. That's by any stretch of imagination that is solid sea movement. So whatever is, they definitely did enough of the surface with some grass covering. So and they bowled in right areas, got some bounce. It was an exceptional bowling performance. So what the opponent can say is yes, it was a sort of one-off. Australia won't bowl it, won't at least the Cummins, Hazelwood and company at least won't reach that kind of elevated level again.
Hmm.
And we can only get better. Definitely, India had a very good chance there, but with a lead of 62 on third day, but then they were.
True. I think I'll also tend to agree. Manju, any thoughts, any different thoughts?
Yeah, mainly we all discussed how the collapse occurred. But then, as a coach, as a team management, what do you tell your batsmen after this has happened before the next test?
I think it's mainly in this sort of situation, perhaps it comes down to mindset. You can't change someone's technique in 3 or 4 days, right? The best thing you can say is see, perhaps make an individual X player or Y player, make him watch some video where he's got 100, 120 in some conditions. That can be one of the ways. Still, you are very good. You have done this before. Why can't you do it again? And we have heard enough about from players. He might have some other weaknesses, but we have heard enough about Ravi Shastri's motivational skills. I don't need to add something. The guy who went and told Narendra Irvani, uska danda nikalega about some 8 or 10, so many times that he
Right.
actually got Viv Richards out the flipper first ball itself.
Right.
Those Mumbai players from early 90s also tell that he's known to be very good motivator, but obviously he might have other weaknesses. But in terms of, I don't think we need to say more about Shastri's skills only in this aspect. I would say.
Okay. So uh, I think we tend to agree to that, but there are a couple of players at least who would be missing the second test. One being Shami, who got injured, and there is a general consensus that Prithvi Shaw would also get dropped, and obviously Virat Kohli is not there. So Shami and Virat Kohli definitely not playing. But Prithvi Shaw is also someone who's facing a lot of criticism. So I think you also mentioned in our last podcast that you would want Shubman to actually open instead of Prithvi Shaw. So you think now is high time that it should happen?
Yes, I would have opened with Gill, but in the same way, I sort of feel a bit of sympathy for Shaw because they made him play in conditions that were alien to him, unfamiliar climes. For someone whose technique seems to be more suited to Asian conditions, they made him play in some alien conditions, and now they're going to drop at MCG where, if anything, if Shaw could get runs, it was perhaps at MCG or SCG, but they made him play in Adelaide. But obviously, I would have definitely picked Gill, looking at how those two played in the warm-up games. Those warm-up games, Gill looked slightly better of the two. KL Rahul is the other choice, but hasn't played red ball cricket forever. While he hasn't looked like a test opener at least for a while, he looked more like KL Rahul 2.0 is sort of more suited to limited overs cricket in whatever way you want to look at it. At least for Karnataka fans who watched him somewhere in 2014, 2015, or 2013, he seemed like a slightly different player to the one who's batting now. He seemed more like a middle order batsman in a sense. So I would open with Gill there. And there could be other changes. I've heard that Hanuma Vihari might miss out. I don't know how true it is. Jadeja coming in, and obviously it looks like Saha is in danger of losing his place with Pant coming in, and obviously there's a force change as well with Shami being injured. So that 4-5 changes that could come into the Indian team. So the definitely, I'm not a fan of it, but in this case, of making too many changes. But in this case, it looks like obviously two changes are forced changes. As you know, Kohli is going on a leave, and the other one is Shami getting injured. But obviously, I would have Will MCG test. I would have him in the opening test.
So I think net if we look at we should call it two changes only because two are forced. So we should not look at it as four changes and then start discussing so many changes and all those things. So let's uh, put our focus on Vridhiman Saha for 1 or 2 minutes. So he actually before the test, there were many people who were saying that Saha should be playing and he's the best keeper. And suddenly now the consensus seems to be shifting that Saha doesn't have the technique to bat, at least in these conditions. And also talks about this being his last test, that now his career should be over and Pant should be given a long go. So, your thoughts on such drastic shift?
Saha will look decent in the practice game. Actually, to his credit, on day one of that Adelaide test, when the ball was going around quite a bit, there was one delivery from Stark that seemed to come in and then leave him off the scene. When you think of that, the 25-30 deliveries, he actually battled hard. But then came the second day, he got out a soft dismissal. Then came the next day, again got out a soft dismissal. It is not like he got out to some very good deliveries or deliveries where it swung in or seemed away. So that was quite curious from someone who is known to be a sort of gritty batsman. If he's not known to be someone who plays a lot of shots, but at least he's known to be someone who's gritty. But he got out to soft dismissals. So I think in that case, he's on a very weak wicket because it's not like he got out a very good delivery where one can show that there's a good nut. It's fine. So yes, there's obviously when you lose a test match, when you lose so badly, obviously the question marks would be asked, and if you ask fans or even experts, there would be drastic shift, as you would say, because it's come after 636 all out. When it's a 36 all out, there would be all kinds of suggestions. One or two might even suggest take out 6-7 players and bring in 6-7 new players. What will happen? So there would be such kind of suggestions. But looking at how he got out to soft dismissals, he's 36-year-old now. Then I think it's better to back a younger keeper because he's going to be around for a longer period of time investment. I thought might be. I just said I thought it might be. Sir deserves at least one chance. perhaps because he at least looked gritty in that practice game and is a pretty good keeper. But after those two soft dismissals and now he's 36, 35, 36 as well. I don't think he's much time on his hands. At least, of course, I'm thinking about his cricketing career. So I don't think there's a lot of time on his hands in terms of his cricketing career.
It's really funny that suddenly people have realized that he's 36 years old. And there was no real talk about it till the first test.
It's a known fact, but at least he seemed like a gritty cricketer. At least seemed like a couple of matches I saw. At least seemed like someone who could play that kind of gritty innings. But two soft dismissals, I think it is time to look for someone else because it is not like he got out a really good nut or a good delivery.
And Bharat, what's your take on the Shami injury? I think there have been unconfirmed news that he's out of the entire series.
Confirmed.
So
It's a fracture.
BCCI has not. Has BCCI also confirmed?
But it's more confirmed only. We
Okay.
got it yesterday as well. Confirmations are mostly confirmed. He's going to fly back. So Shami is basically out. Even at the end of the test match, Kohli himself said that on the line that he couldn't really move his hand or something like that. So
Yeah.
one could observe or one could at that time self-capitalize that Shami is going to be out.
So Kohli actually wanted somebody to accompany him back on the flight. So I think he got
But
somebody.
not in a sling.
So since we are talking about Shami, so now he's not there. So who would be your pick for the third seamer, assuming you want to go for a 3-seam bowling attack?
If it's a third seamer, I would look at perhaps Siraj only. But again, even now it could depend on the conditions. Last time around when Australia played New Zealand, there seemed to be a little more in the pitch for the fast bowlers. I think New Zealand and Australia fast bowlers, both of them, both units took a few wickets here and there. So it is compared to the Ashes 2017-18, there was a little more in it for the paceman. It seemed like that, but it could also be a slow turner. Who knows? But if you about third seamers, then I would look at I think Siraj. I heard that the MCG curator, I think it's might be Page. He sort of worked on those concrete slabs and all. Has removed the concrete slab or something like that. So it might offer a little more. Last time around also offered a little more for the placement.
Okay. Manju, any different thoughts? Would you play Navdeep Saini?
Well, he's a hit the deck seamer and a little different from Siraj, but depends on how his radar is. On the practice game, he was not very promising. So probably and looking at what they did for the 36 all out, we can choose a guy who can inflict it back on them with the same skills. So maybe Siraj in that respect.
True. But also let's talk about whether it makes sense to go with two spinners. Many people have also said that we should have 5 bowlers and the replacement for Kohli should be actually Jadeja. So,
Okay.
so thoughts, both of you. Bharat, we'll start with you.
See, I am someone who would say it's better to back 6 batsmen unless you have someone who can really bat at. Of course, you can push someone like if you pick Pant or someone like that, you can push him one slot up and have Jadeja at 7 or something like that. But MCG, you expect conditions to be good for batting, at least better than what we saw at Adelaide, where the ball seemed around. So in such conditions, what you want, you would like to win the toss, bat first, get about 450, 500 runs in the board, like what India did in 2018-19. Get runs on the board, then hope that track would get slower or slightly slower, and the bowlers can come into play then with odd cracks. So the best thing I would say the best thing you can do is pick 6 batsmen, get runs on the board, and then back your 4 bowlers. And unless you have such a quality all-rounder in your ranks, I'm not too sure of that kind of a move. Why would you want to go with 5 ball? You want to put runs on runs on the board in such conditions. And the best way to get runs on the board is back your 6 batsmen. Definitely, the conditions you expect it to be better than Adelaide, and you have to back your batsmen to get runs in such conditions. Not a huge fan of getting Jadeja in for his batting skills. If I have to pick Jadeja, it would be mainly for his bowling skills. I understand he's improved as a batsman, but if I have to pick Jadeja in the team, I would look mainly at his bowling skills and then think about his batting.
So just to clarify, 6 batsmen doesn't include Pant, right? He's number 7. When you say 6 batsmen, Pant
Just-
doesn't get included.
Yeah.
Okay. So Manju, any different thoughts? Would you play Jadeja for Virat Kohli?
No, if you look at what Australia has been doing, they have these 3 seamers and Lyon. But the thing is, they have Lyon, who's like ready to even bowl one whole session unchanged from one end. So we don't have that kind of defensive spin option. So for a country like India, who's touring like Australia, and you have to win a test match, the best option is by taking wickets. So if you want to take 20 wickets, I always go with 5 proper bowlers and tell the batsman that the least you can do is to get us a total 285 or 320 to bowl at if we bat first.
Okay. So a little different strategy, but who would you replace Jadeja with?
I would give one more game to Vihari.
Okay. No, but if you're saying 5 bowlers, then who misses out?
Yeah, so then then obviously in place of Vihari, then Jadeja, I would be expecting him to be a bowler.
Okay.
That is the thing. Yeah.
Okay, got it. Okay. And then now there's a big debate about the batting order also. So
Right.
a few people have said that KL Rahul should open, and then Shubman Gill, especially because he's making his debut also, should bat in middle order. And then there are a few who are saying that KL Rahul no longer has that sound technique to be batting as an opener. And Gill has already shown that in the practice matches that he can be the opener that India is looking for. So Bharat, which side are you on this discussion?
I would say I would go with Gill as an opener and KL somewhere in the middle order if I have to really look at these 2 batsmen, because Gill, people say he doesn't really open, but if you look at his first class record, even for Punjab, he used to open with Sanveer Singh used to open with Jivanjit Singh in 2017-18. So it's not like it's not open in first class cricket, and he can definitely bat in the top order. We saw in the practice game. He has played in practice games. KL Rahul hasn't played in in the practice games. He's not played red ball cricket for a while. So but really starting it would be in the middle order for KL Rahul instead of opening, because it's not batted at that slot for a while in red ball cricket, I'm saying.
Hmm.
Because when was the last time you played red ball cricket? Quite a while ago.
Yeah.
Suddenly if you play a white ball which swings for 2-3 overs, and then KL Rahul these days, even in one day cricket, batting in the middle order, it comes in when the white ball is not swinging or doing anything, and then suddenly comes up as an opener is a red ball. 100% every professional like this, the red kookaburra or the pink kookaburra at least will do something off the surface or swing a little bit or 15 hours at least.
Hmm.
So in that sense, why would you have someone who hasn't really opened at that or hasn't really played red ball cricket?
Hmm. Manju, any different thoughts?
Well, if your name is Rahul, you'll have to keep wickets and open the batting someday. So he has chosen to go down this path. And I also saw one old interview of his when he was 17 years of age, when he said he wants to emulate Rahul Dravid. So I think as far as character and the effort, everything is there. Technically, many will not agree, but currently the position wise, he is the only stopgap arrangement which I feel can be made. So maybe only for this series or something they may want to open with.
And also, there could be a thought process that out of Gill and KL Rahul, who do you want to continue with once Rohit Sharma comes? So,
Yes.
if the team management prefers to continue with Gill, they would want KL Rahul to open. And if it is otherwise, then uh, it might be that Shubman Gill opens. Because once Rohit comes back, there is it is highly likely that he will be the second opener.
I think I would add just one more point. I think what India really lack is someone who's a left-handed, decent to good left-handed opener. Because if you take an example, Josh Hazlewood himself was saying after the 2017-18 Ashes, as England had quite a few left-handers, he got into this habit of side bend because he had to bowl it across the left-handed batsman. He got into these bad habits. So a bowler really has to do, even though Hazelwood got wickets in the series, a bowler has to really adjust to a left-handed batsman by bowling it across him, or obviously one to swing back, something like that. So I think India are lacking in that sense. They good left-handed opener, solid left-handed test opener. That's something that might have actually helped India as well in Adelaide.
And not just opener, they don't really have anybody
Yes.
left-handed. So that is also, even if you have middle order, a couple of left-handers, that actually helps. But they don't really have anybody in the batting lineup. Now maybe Pant will come, but I think
So,
Jadeja might also help in such a scenario.
down the order.
Um, but maybe, and also your thoughts on, let's say, Vihari opening and both of them being in the middle order.
It's been discussed quite a bit. See, Vihari has said before that is for 7, 8 years played in middle order for so long, and even when he opened once or twice, he seemed to have a problem or two as a short ball. Obviously, as a ratio or two against incoming delivery. So why to sort of make him open the batting when he's batted in the middle order for so long? It's like minimizing his batting potential, right? Someone bats at four or five in domestic cricket, or occasionally at three, and then suddenly you push him to the top of the order against Hazelwood or Stark or Cummins, uh, Red Kookaburra, which will do a bit. Why to mess up with someone who's basically known as a middle order batsman some 8 years or something?
So basically, you need to find a guy who you will drop in the next match. So if it has to be Hanuma
Yeah.
Vihari, then he opens. So I
Right.
think that is what the thought process would be. But I think there have been talks about Vihari being dropped also.
Yes.
So that for me, it doesn't seem logical. So I hope those news are wrong, because I don't think
Oh,
this his performance suddenly warrants him to be dropped from the squad.
find a scapegoat or something. Because
Mm.
second innings he got out a pretty good net. Lot of other batsmen also might have got out that kind of a delivery. Came in and sort of left him.
Hmm. So now the another last thing probably we'll talk on part one of the podcast would be the fielding. So I think the fielding standards somehow in the one day series also, and the initial series also, and in IPL also were quite low in especially catching. So your thoughts on whether what are the reasons, one, and second, uh, does fielding coach take responsibility of such a dismal performance in fielding?
I think some responsibility has to take. But of course, you can tell that a slow-moving fielder like Prithvi Shaw or from another time Manoj Prabhakar or Inzam Amul Haq, how can you make a cricketer suddenly an athlete? As they say, you need some kind of fast twitch muscles or whatever they say to become an athlete. How to make Prithvi Shaw suddenly an athlete who's so slow across the field? It is difficult, but some responsibility perhaps has to take because India have consistently drop catches, let it be in a slip cordon, let it be somewhere in the deep, uh, at various other fielding positions. We have seen catches being dropped. It could be something sort of technical, someone who's better at it in terms of fielding technicalities might know better about it, but he has to take some responsibility when catches go down again and again. Obviously, a slip fielder, someone like Bobby Simpson or Mark or even from an Indian context, Azharuddin or Dravid, these guys had those great hands to take slip catches. Uh, some of the fielders might not have the soft hands. They might sort of try to grab it, like John T. Rhodes himself once or twice tried to field in a slip tournament and dropped 2 3 chances, and after that South Africa didn't slot him in the slip cordon at all because he was not made for standing in the slips. So one or two fielders might not have those great hands. So in that sense, it perhaps would be difficult turn them suddenly into good fielders, but somewhere some responsibility has to be taken when so many catches get dropped or
Mm.
fluff.
And also there was a point made that in terms of practice also, you need to practice in similar conditions and same angles. So if, let's say, a Prithvi Shaw is fielding at square leg, he should practice fielding at square leg so that the angles and the background he gets used to. So maybe those things are not being taken care of.
Now don't know what is happening in terms of what fielding coach is telling. It's very hard to tell as an outsider what exactly is happening. Obviously, that's something you go to certain grounds, alien conditions, different angles, different dimensions come into play. When you think of all those things, obviously, fielding coach has to look at. There could be a lot of technical things that people perhaps don't exactly know much about. That's not being said, but if you, some extent, you can cut slack. I feel little bit of slack because some of them, at least few of the Indian fielders, they seem to be slow moving across the slow moving cricketers. So in that sense, you could cut a bit of slack, but some responsibilities somewhere has to be taken.
So I think Prithvi Shaw's exclusion might also, one of the reason might be the fielding also, because he dropped Labuschagne, so that was a
Um,
big miss, and I
oh,
think those kind of things actually amplify your bad performances in terms of batting. So if you're batting well, you might get excused, but if you're not batting well and also not fielding well, then there is a problem.
you can go back to in domestic cricket, Ranji Trophy. I've seen him drop quite a few chances. That is why I'm surprised you took that very good catch in the warm up because he's
Hmm.
not known to take good catches. It is not known to take. He's not known as a safe catcher. Leave alone good catches. He's not known to be a safe catcher. He drops sitters, he clangers, drops.
Hmm. So, Bharat, what is now, according to you, the road ahead for Prithvi Shaw?
The road ahead, I think the best thing you can do with someone like Prithvi Shaw is let him play his natural game. That's what I think even Dravid suggested when this is not about Prithvi Shaw. Someone had asked, I think, in an interview or something that are you looking at technical changes or something? When he was the under 19 coach or around that time, he said it was mainly about trying to improve someone's mindset when he's 20 or 19, 22. It's very difficult to change someone's technique. Maybe few tweaks can be done, but I'm not too sure because Prithvi Shaw's foundation is based on something else. It's based on something like staying slightly, if I'm talking in a layman's language, it's about trying to stay slightly like side of the ball and trying to open up the outside. This is a sort of game that perhaps doesn't go well or tailor made for conditions when the ball moves around a little bit of seam when this bowler generates some swing in the air, it perhaps doesn't go well. So this game is made for something else. The best thing you can do is in such kind of players back him, uh, really just be confident and keep going because if he gets going, he can get big runs. The other thing you can do with Shaw is if he's again picked when the ball is moving around, look at him as perhaps a number 5 or number 6 batsman and see how it goes. And a soft Kookaburra ball or something like that, he can really come good. If he might cause some damage. Always one has to remember that within the Sehwag's one test 100 in South Africa, where the ball does a little bit. There's a thinking that slightly different leather is used. I don't know how true it is for Kookaburra, but it does a bit definitely in South Africa. The one test 100 is got is at number 6, right, in Bloemfontein. So I'm not saying similar, exactly similar kind of player. Maybe the raw version of Sehwag, but his basics sort of are somewhat similar to Virender Sehwag than Sachin Tendulkar. That some were suggesting that is next Sachin Tendulkar. I don't think he is, because I saw Tendulkar at 17 or 18 and definitely had a solid technique. At least in that sense, at least at the moment, is doesn't look like Tendulkar. If anything, looks like the raw version of Sehwag. So that is something India can look at in the future. That if he's going to play some moving ball, why not look at him as a number 5, number 6 batsman who can come in as a soft Kookaburra and cause a lot of damage, 50 or 40 balls.
Mm. And I think he needs to really go back to the domestic cricket and pile up some runs also. So that will give him confidence rather than just touring with the team and not playing. That doesn't really solve his problem.
That's one way of looking at it, but the another thing is, would it really challenge him domestic cricket? Going back to domestic cricket, I'm 99% sure he will definitely get a lot of runs.
Hmm.
And will it really challenge him? We can also go the other way. For example, I remember when Markwa retired in 2002, he went back, he played one season or something domestic cricket afterwards. He said that it didn't really challenge him anymore. Domestic cricket didn't really challenge him, and he just gave it up after one season. One season. So, would it? Yes, he might get plenty of runs. His confidence might be back, but would it really challenge him after playing international level sort of batsman, fast bowler? So, in that sense, that's another way of looking at it. Is perhaps if he goes on with the Indian team, or if he tours a few countries, he might learn something. Get some of the top class batsmen like Kohli or something like that.
And in the 96 season, VVS Lakshman played for a second 11 in club cricket in UK. So will such a stint help Prithvi, or it will again further have problem? Or what do you feel at this stage?
It could definitely help. So, for example, Pujara played a couple of seasons in county cricket during early May or something like that. Couple of seasons, actually struggled 1 or 2 seasons, but it was in early April or early May around that time. So the wickets were fresh and he was getting out early, but it helped him to get used to the conditions, sort of. You could see in 2018 when India toured England, he did perform well in one test
Yeah.
or something like that. So definitely different conditions. Uh, Even if he gets out for say 2-3 zeros, you at least understand. You would be able to gauge conditions, the different conditions, like the Duke's ball or something like that. Even if it is not county cricket, let it be club cricket, he's still facing the Dukes, right? So he would definitely sort of great cricket or whatever. He would get used to different conditions. That definitely could help such a stint. But would modern day Indian batsmen take such stints? Of course, a few of them go to county cricket, but with IPL around and at least county cricket, IPL is usually played around April, May. So how
Yeah,
much time
same window.
it has?
So, but I think India can still recognize 2 or 3 players who are like exclusively playing red ball, and they should at least go for county cricket every year. So that
Hmm.
might actually help the test team in the long run.
Yes, definitely.
So, like a Hanuma Vihari and a Pujara should ideally
Could
be
be
playing county cricket.
It could be even bowlers because Ishant Sharma went there and Jason
Hmm.
helped him as well.
Even
So
Ashwin benefited.
yeah, so you can pick up something from coach.
Mostishar.
Yeah, you can pick up something from even coaches or something. Something it could be, or for the matter, as Zaid Khan said, in county cricket you play day in and day out. So many games you play, so you get used to the fast bowler gets used to the rigor of bowling. Because,
Hmm.
more you bowl, the better it is for any bowler.
And I think there is no negative.
Yes.
You will only learn. and improve if you're going there. So if you're concentrating on test cricket, it will definitely help you. So Manju, over to you.
I would like to start by with the history of Melbourne, as it's the ground which has the largest capacity down under, at least till recently, till it was eclipsed by the Motera Stadium, and it still has it quite close to 90,000 spectator capacity, and it also witnessed the first ever Test match to be played. So, your memories of Melbourne over the years?
Over the years, Melbourne, one of them would be first one would be Australia versus West Indies. I don't have much memory of India versus Australia in 91, 92. First one I really remember is 92, 93 Australia West Indies. Cracked up pitch. I think Marquardt kept ramping West Indies fast balls with slip cordon. He was dropped a few times, but he kept ramping them with slip cordon, and Border got a 100 also, I think. And then the Australian spinners perhaps came through and they won that test. That was the first real memory I have. And after that, obviously, there have been lots of very good test matches. 96, 97, Cutley Ambrose, I think, ran through Australia. He was under fire, he was under pressure, he was not performing as well as everyone thought he would, and he really ripped through Australia. McGrath then ripped through. But West Indies fast bowlers are too much in it for Australia and won the test. Then Jack Calais got, I think, maybe he's made in test in 97, 98. And Australians really tried to sledge him. I think that is when he became, I thought that is when he really became that great cricketer. Until then, it seemed as if that perhaps once or twice it seemed as if Calais didn't exactly believe in his ability. But that century, when Australians really stepped in, he sort of became a different kind of batsman, different kind of cricketer. Obviously, 99, 2000, it didn't go well. Didn't go well at all, if you remember correctly, for India, other than Tendulkar's hundreds. What else? In 2000, 2003, 4 again, there is a sort of collapse. India sort of suffered a collapse. Then there was, I think, if I remember correctly, Dale Steyn once generated a lot of reverse swing and got a 10-wicket haul. He used the angles and generated reverse swing, and South Africa won that test. So there have been some memorable tests, but recently, obviously, MCG has come under fire for some flat tracks. As you know, drop in pitches, 2017-18 Ashes, we saw that it was a sort of dead deck, slow deck, where LS Cook got that big 100, big massive score, big double time. He got that. So he sort of slowed down the track. There's a little bit in it last time around when Australia played New Zealand. But that thing, something perhaps doesn't help with sort of Colosseum or a great stadium like MCG, that when the pitch is flat, it doesn't make for great viewing, even though so many spectators come to watch Boxing Day test. So that is something perhaps curator page has to look at.
And there was a domestic game in 2019 in November between Western Australia and Western Australia and Victoria, and 3 Western Australian batsmen were struck by the ball. So after that, has the wicket improved, or you find?
Faintly remember that game. It's an early season game, if I remember correctly, and the ball seemed to behave sort of awkwardly off the surface. It's definitely, as I said, the Australia New Zealand Test match last year. It seemed to do a little more for the seamers. It was not moving around zigzag. It was still a slow track, but it definitely did a little more of the seam at least. And that's the most you can expect from perhaps MCG. Even if you go back to the 90s, it wasn't known as a quick track. I think you have to go back to some Graham McKenzie days or Patowdy days when he took on Graham McKenzie with India tottering at 25 for 5. Then they prepared a green seamer. I think perhaps prepared that green seamer because India didn't have fast bowlers at that time. So that could be the reason. But once dropping wickets have come, I don't remember even from 97 or whatever when South Africa toured Australia any quick wicket in at MCG, but did a little bit of the same last year.
So considering this pitch, you will feel three seamers will be an ideal combination on this track. And how do you expect them to rotate or bowl together?
Most likely, I would look at the three seamers only. Unless it's a very slow turner or something, then the Indian think tank might think of. If you look at it logically, they might think of picking a spinner in that sense. How do you look at MCG? One point you would look at is in 2018-19 when India toured Australia and won that test. Mohammad Shami got contrast swing, I think, if I remember correctly. So if it's a sort of slow track, you might do a little bit of the seam. A little bit off in the air once the ball gets old. We have seen that at MCG occasionally does a little bit there, the old ball. So in that sense, might be slightly Indian CMS, Indian paces might like it slightly, even though Shami is now not there, but there's still Umesh Yadav who can generate some reverse swing. So it could be, conditions could be slightly different, say, compared to Adelaide. Still, go back to basics with a new ball. Look at top of off stump, around off stump, around a good length area. Then once the ball gets old, unless it is really swinging in the air, the old ball, which happened in 2018-19. I think even in 2017-18 Ashes, James Anderson got a little bit, just a hint of reverse swing with the old ball. So it does a little bit, perhaps with the old ball, but to still look at with the Kookaburra soft ball, still look at bowling in the channel with the old Kookaburra. So that could be.
So, with regards to spinners, any special strategy, or you will feel that they will come into play later in the game?
I think if you look at 2018-19 conditions, the slow turn was there, so the spinner might have a chance or two. Last year also, I think there's just a little bit in it for spinners, but whatever spinners would get, I think it would be sort of slow turns. So perhaps it will play the waiting game. It won't be like, say, the Gabba where Nathan Lyon can come in. I'm thinking of someone who can get a little bit of kick, or even in Adelaide when Ashwin got some purchase. I think whatever will happen at MCG, it will be sort of slow turn.
And usually MCG is a result-oriented ground. So what are the factors contributing to getting a result? Like there have been few exciting draws, even a close game where West Indies won by a run. But apart from that, so not many draws here.
Yeah, just look at MCG as a vast history. So if you look at it in that way, conditions might have changed over a period of time. So it would be better to look at what has happened in the recent past, right, the last 2-3 years, rather than going right back into some other time. What we have seen is just considered 2-3 test matches, 2017-18 Ashes, that was a dead Dodo deck. Obviously, it came under a lot of fire, and I think it was rated as poor. The pitch was rightly rated as poor. 2018-19, I think it was slightly better in the sense that at least in a default way, whatever Indian bowlers got something out of the world ball, and they won that test. Obviously, important test victory for India. Last time around, Australia, New Zealand, usually Australia, New Zealand test matches usually goes in Australia's favor only. And paces seem to get a little more from the surface. So what could be contributing factors? One could be in 2018-19 when India won that test, got runs on the board. I think that could be a contributing factor. Win the toss, get runs on the board, 450, whatever, even if it takes 150 hours or whatever, get 450, 500, scoreboard pressure. Scoreboard pressure after that, odd crack might develop, few indentations, slow track, vocational delivery might hold up, which again happened in 2018-19. and that could play a role.
You think it will be a safe option to win the toss and bat first on the MCG?
Yeah, I would definitely think so. I expect decent to good conditions for batting.
So
when
there'll be no compelling reason to change the mind, the captain, and bowl first, or
when I don't think I've seen a green seamer at MCG. At least green seamer I haven't seen. The closest it perhaps came down to I have seen at least is the 99-2000 test between India and Australia, where they seemed to leave some grass at least. But when that wasn't a green seamer, I don't think I've seen a green seamer in 25 or whatever years in MCG.
So Bharat,
so after the Gabba,
let's say if India lose the toss, do you still see India being able to win it or make an impact if they're bowling first?
The best you can do is, I think, at MCG it's more about compared to day-night test in Adelaide. I think it's more about the waiting game. MCG, I think that's the best thing India can do. Just play the waiting game. Hope that they'll get bowled out for 300, 320 or whatever. The best thing to do at MCG is your first things get 400, 450 runs in a board. I'm pretty sure if even in the Ted Desododo on the Ted Desododo track in 2017-18, the Ashes, after Australia had bowled out for some 360 or something, England got 450 the first innings. Of course, it was so flat that Australia again 500 or whatever they got England the first innings. But after that, Australia again batted well because the track was too flat. So the best thing you can do is bowl out the opponent if you're bowling first for around 320, 350, and then hope to get a lead of say 100 or something and put the opponent back in position.
So digging out a few old games for Indian fans, India won 2 tests in 78 and 81. So any memories of those games, like what you may have read, because they both the games India batted first, and of course initially there was Bedi and Chandra to do the damage.
Yes. Of course the famous one is that 81 because there was a good Australian side.
Right.
Had enough class players. Vishwanath was struggling for, if I'm not mistaken, he got some runs in that test.
Yes.
He was really struggling for form, but he came good. Obviously, that test match is known for some controversy as well. Gavaskar was batting. Gavaskar was batting really well, and then he was wrongly given out. And sort of banter, whatever you want to call it, verbal sort of banter, sort of with the latest skill. They wanted to go off the field with Chetan Chavan. And then I think it's being come under the manager who sort of came in. Sahith Kirmani asked him to come into play, and it was he who sort of asked, if I remember correctly, from whatever I have read, for Gavaskar to keep playing. And then India were chasing the lowest target. Kapil Dev was injured, maybe hamstring. I'm not 100% sure, but he was definitely injured. But came roaring in. I think he bowled slightly quicker from the highlights, whatever I watched, YouTube highlights. He bowled quicker than he usually would do. And the cracks had developed then. Karsan Gowri also played a role, if I remember correctly, but Greg Chappell out. And Doshi also bowled tightly, and that is, I think, that's one of India's greatest ever victories away from home. The other one, obviously, it was Parker. Australia didn't have Parker stars, but it doesn't take anything away from India's achievement. Australia players like Sargent, Bob Simpson was captaining, had come back. The Australian set up to captain this inside. Kim Hughes was there, perhaps. Toohey was there, Peter Toohey. Jeff Thompson was around, most likely was around because I think he had a contract with ABC Radio, something like that, National Radio, whatever. That's why he didn't play in the Parker. That could be the reason. But he bowled fast from whatever I've read. Wayne Clark was perhaps there. Indian spinners did the damage, and he had to win that test actually, if I'm not mistaken, to stay in the series. And the Indian spinners, Bedi, the Chandrasekhars of the Indian team just ran through. So obviously, but the most famous one would be Kapil Dev heroics.
So any reason you feel for the spinner's success on these games? Like Doshi bowled well and Bedi Chandra also bowled well.
Even those days, don't to be the track was known as a track where you get at least slow turn. But one thing you notice, even if you notice YouTube highlights, if you go to YouTube and watch some highlights, you see few more cracks. Those were not drop index, so
Yeah.
that could be reason. So few more cracks around, so that perhaps helps spinners to come into play.
So Sunit, you have any more questions about the venue?
No, I think you have covered most, but I think one question I would have for Bharat is what would be his most memorable game at MCG?
Whatever I've seen,
Yeah,
most memorable.
or most exciting, you think?
Most exciting, if you just look at it from a sort of neutral point of view, it could be that South Africa Australia test in the late 2000s, 2008, 9. Dale Steyn bowled a great spell of reverse swing and it was batted well, if I remember correctly, alongside Dominic. And they came back from behind and won that test. That was, I think, one of the best test matches one has seen at MCG. But whatever I've seen at MCG, it is, if you look at it as spectacle, it's sort of slow moving, slightly slow moving game you expect. You don't expect so high adrenaline sort of cricket where what we saw in Adelaide in 3 days, day night test, it just got over. So it would be sort of slow moving game. One has to play the waiting game. One has to hope that once the ball gets sold, it's or something like that as we did for David Steyn. I think that would be one of the bestest matches.
And which Indian batsman would you say is more likely to perform well here, given the techniques?
I think I would look at Cheteshwar Pujara. He's exactly the kind of batsman for this kind of pitch. Even if you look at 2017-18 Ashes, it was Alistair Cook who got those runs, and he's again known as someone who can stonewall for long periods of time, and this is something I expect from Pujara as well, which he did in 2018-19. These are the kind of batsmen I think you look at MCG. So perhaps a game of patience. To think of at MCG how to get through slightly tricky periods where you might see some 20, 15, 20 dot balls, you still have to get through such periods.
Hmm.
So this is a kind of curious kind of wicket where perhaps a bowler won't be able to run through or rip through or rip through the cream of the opposition batting lineup. But it's a sort of track where if batsman gets in, you can get big scores.
And what about that? The danger of Nathan Lyon, especially in second innings. Do you think he would be a lot more effective in the second innings, and India should be actually thinking about how to counter him?
He would be there and thereabouts. You definitely ball with control. But if you think of Nathan Lyon, think of the kind of kicking bounce, kind of imparts or spin. You look at tracks, perhaps tracks like New Perth Stadium or the Cup or even the Adelaide Test, where occasionally you get a little more bounce. MCG will be there and thereabouts. Will still get into the game maybe in the second innings. I will take few wickets, slow turn. You expect slow turn, but perhaps you don't expect him to just rip through a side such conditions. So, but perhaps when it comes to line, batsmen maybe they have to look at sort of playing him out long spells because it's more about I think the patience game. Stadium like MCG.
Also, from a batting point of view, do you think we'll see high run rates, and especially how in the first test we saw that suddenly both the teams actually had run rates quite low, but Australia is historically known for tests where run rate is in closer to 4. So you think we should expect to see something like that?
I think MCG is always one of those grounds in Australia which is known as a sort of a slow moving. You would most likely get slow moving game comparatively. So I'm not too sure we will get uh, such high score. So not high score, I'm saying, but at 100 won't exactly be.
Okay. And also, like we saw Shubman Gill in the practice game, he was actually scoring at almost run a ball kind of an innings. So, do you think those kind of innings should be he would be able to pay, or he should change his strategy and try to look at a more building up of the innings and starting slow?
The new ball, I think, would come onto the bat a little quicker. So, in that sense, he might start well against the new ball because the ball won't. We won't expect much movement of the seam at the MTG. So, you expect Gill to score quickly, maybe against a new ball, but once the ball gets sold, I think it will get slightly tougher. Obviously, the Kookaburra will do a little bit of the pitch, but at MCG and all, you don't expect much movement. So at least in the new ball, you perhaps expect Gill to score at a decent rate, and then sort of look at him as someone who can play long innings if he really wants to go there.
And lastly, something that we missed in part one, we talked about the Indian squad, but we forgot to talk about the Australian
Australian
squad and the changes. So I think Warner walks back into the squad. I think he's available. So who goes out and who does he replace?
You see, David Warner, as I said, it's still a one problem. So not even though he's very hopeful, I'm not 100% sure about his availability in that sense. Yeah, of course, he's very hopeful. That if you look at it, Justin Langer keeps backing Burns. So just from that indicator, who knows, they might keep Burns and take out Green. Though Green sort of adds to the side in terms of balance, but they might just look at it as an option because Langer seems to be a fan of Burns.
Okay. So so who gets dropped? Wade, according to you, will get dropped then.
Green, I thought.
Acha, Green. Okay.
He's also Langer also seems to be a fan of say Wade as a preferred batsman.
Okay, so there's another thought process that Head might get dropped and Wade goes to play in the middle order. So, any thoughts on that?
That could also be an option, sort of. Obviously, Ashwin seemed to have the upper hand against him in the opening test, and the left-hander with Ashwin coming into play. Ashwin, that could be a factor as well. If Warner is available, definitely Ashwin will start back in. But what I see is whatever quotes I've seen over the last few days, the last 1 week or so, Justin Langer seems to be quite a bit of fan of Burns. So, in that sense, I'm just guessing, taking an educated guess that he might back him again after 50.
So let's hope that Warner is still not fit, and I think that will be the best thing for the Indians. At least we don't really want another player
More
start. Yeah, more headache for the bowlers.
Yes, yeah. If David Warner gets in Australian conditions, 70 or 80, then Stu Smith, Labuschagne, and all these guys. Yeah.
So Manju, your last question.
Yeah, the last one is since we all are waking up to the possibility of climate change, there was a report which has come in Wisden called "Playing It by the Clock." So in that they said that the Boxing Day Test and the other venues, Perth and Adelaide, are experiencing warmer summers. So do you feel this will change anything in the team approach or the conditions?
It might, in a sense, I don't know what kind of pitch someone like Page will prepare, but if it's a slightly dry pitch, warmer conditions, you could see those couple of cracks coming into play. That is something we have always seen in Australia. Like even in the 90s, we've seen with warmer conditions around in Australia, you see few cracks. Occasional crack might develop. So in that sense, it could definitely play a part. In Australia, conditions have been sort of, whatever I've heard, reports and all, conditions have been quite warmer, relatively warmer for a period of time in the recent past. So that could be in a few more cracks, indentations.
And will it have any bearing on our seamers? Like, will they be rotated more often or that way?
Yeah, warmer climate, obviously, you have to look at rotating the bowlers. That might also have, I don't know whether that would play a part, but it might also play a part in India picking the 5 bowlers if they really want to go that way. The rotation sort of rotate the bowlers with with spinner or two spinners doing the holding role for a while.
Okay. So last question, Bharat. If they go with 5 bowlers, let's say Jadeja comes in, so who would you pick for the, like, who would you drop?
If I have to pick Jadeja,
Yeah.
if I have to pick Jadeja, that's a really tough one. If I have to really, I'm not too sure. First of all, I would take him and decide. But if I have to really pick him, then I think it could be in Kohli's place only. If I have to look at it that way, because I'm not too sure. I would want to make Hanuma Vihari a scapegoat for what happened. First things, obviously, you can criticize him that he didn't really load or release his back foot, so his front foot was on the move and then LBW. But second innings, pretty good nut, so I don't want to make a scapegoat of a youngster. But even though reports are saying that if they have to pick Jadeja, it looks like Hanuma Vihari will be dropped. That's as per sources. Let me add that it's not reports. But sources.
So great. I think we've covered the venue and the pitch and the history and all those things. So great. Thank you, Bharat, for giving us again a very different perspective, because a lot of previews just talk about the team and the strategies, but venue is also really important. So really good to get your views on that. And uh, we hope to have you back before the third test as well. Okay.
Thank you.
Good night, and thanks, Manju, and we'll see you
Yeah,
soon.
thank you.
Sorry,
Thanks, Sunil.
sorry for all the noise. Just can't do much.
Sorry, didn't get you. Bharat, can you repeat?
Sorry for all the noise.
Yeah,
Sorry
no,
for all the noise.
no
No,
problems.
that's okay.
That's part and parcel
Already
of.
there's a lot of noise after 36 all out. There is a lot of noise. And there's a 36-year-old keeper who's got